So, hi, I'm Dr. Vetere. I am very excited today to interview a good friend of mine about health and wellness. A little bit about me. I've been in private practice for almost 40 years as a chiropractor, a health consultant, let's see, I'm trying to find the word, somebody who goes against the grain of the medical machine and questions things that come out about big farmers push on all the drugs that we're taking. And I want to speak to my patients about what you could do naturally to get well. And what I find very interesting is this, and I find it exciting, is that we have lay people. We have people who are not formally trained as doctors or nutritionists and etc., but have taken the bull by the horn. They're delving into trying to understand what it is to get well, how to get well, and information is out there. And I find it very exciting this afternoon to interview a good friend of mine, my friend Vic Dedaj. And what's really interesting is, and before Vic, you start telling us about your story, I want to tell you about my friend Vic. Vic is he's right up there with the top two or three people that I know that I would put on my Trivia Pursuit team if I was going to play for $1 million and have Vic as the go-to guy to answer the questions. Because I have to say, friends, this guy retains information, knows information, and just brilliant. He's a brilliant guy. So anyway, Victor, tell us a little bit about you and how you, Victor, got into this whole idea of writing a book and becoming a wellness type of coach, and to excite people that they can get well too. So give me a little bit about you.
All right, so I'm a lifelong New Yorker. I worked in the corporate world for many years, but many years ago, I came across some books, some articles about how like they're holding back information about our health, and it made me want to study more about this because I didn't realize that. I was just wondering why people were getting sick and constantly, and diseases were spreading rapidly, and I realized a big part were several things. Number one is the type of foods that we eat. People eating really bad quality food that makes them sicker. People are not getting enough nutrition. People aren't exercising. So it's a whole bunch of different things. And also, people are on all kinds of medications right now.
Yeah, I
And
want to jump in right there for a second because, being that I'm in practice, I see people come in and they, asking about a history of what's wrong with them, and they'll explain to me, no, I got this problem, that problem, but it's all under control. I'm taking medication. And it's almost comical that between and listen, I'm not bashing the entire medical world. I'm just talking about people who just give meds to people, but don't give them the alternatives that they would use naturally. And even if it's just stop eating certain foods to get well, because the machine that's out there between the prescriptions and the pharmaceutical people, yes, people may feel better, but they're not getting healthy, just as you said.
no, and absolutely. One of the things with a lot of these prescription drugs is number one, they generally don't treat the illness. They just mask the symptoms. So you may not feel anything, but once you get off them, you're going to start feeling all those symptoms again, and nothing's taken care of. There's no cure that it happens as a result of taking these medicines. The other thing is they tend to have a lot of bad side effects.
Oh, sure.
Yeah, and they also drain you of very important nutrients. So it could be magnesium, CoQ10. A lot of these prescriptions also have fluoride, which is a poison. So that is a big problem. So they really don't cure anything. They just really just suppress the symptoms. And a lot of times they're suppressing your immune system, which is not a good thing because you always want your immune system to be working. So those are
Right,
some of the
right,
problems.
exactly.
And the problem is sometimes you may have a reaction to some of the meds you're having, so they'll give you another med to
True.
counteract the fact that you're allergic to it. So you have a lot of people are on
You
five,
know,
seven,
that's
ten
that's
meds.
what I that's what I kind of find almost brilliant about it is that, you know, I see patients come in, they have, five, six, seven, eight different medications, sometimes a whole loose leaf piece of paper filled with medications. And what I find brilliant is that the human body doesn't just die from it. It's like, how in the world, like if I took two different, I'm 64 years old. I don't take any medications. I'm nervous if I took even one or two medications while being healthy, I may drop dead from it. So just imagine if you're not well and you're taking 12 different medications. I just don't get the principle behind it.
Yeah, I agree. And here's the thing. I've never met someone who says, I'm on 10 medications and I feel great. They just don't exist. But like
No,
you, I'm like you. I don't take any medication.
nobody lives to 100 taking 10 medications either.
Exactly. And here's the thing, the liver has an incredible ability to handle these toxins that come from these meds. But if you take it too much, it can overwhelm the liver. So
Sure.
that's the thing.
Sure.
If the liver sees the point, so it tries its best to handle it. But that's why if we take a lot of these medications, what does he tell you? He'll say, come back every 3 months or 6 months. You want to look at your liver, make sure it's
Yeah.
operating okay.
Yeah,
Because
you have to
it,
constantly, and some medications are so toxic that once you're on them, you have to like slowly wean yourself off so you don't put your body into some type of shock. Yeah, I find that pretty amazing, especially that so much of the nutrition that you can get for your overall wellness you can get from foods, so it's like I know people taking medication for this, medication for that, and patients consult me about what herbs and supplements that they can take to get well or to improve themselves, and that's good. But I believe, okay, I want to hear your opinion from your side of the fence. Like, what about just diet? Why are not people just changing their diet or put a little control to it?
Yeah, I agree with you. Everything eventually, it ultimately starts with diet. And I'm also a big believer in supplements because I think they work together. Number one, you have to eat better quality foods. Unfortunately, over the last 60, 70 years, we're eating a lot of highly processed foods, foods with lots of sugar, foods with less fiber, less nutrients. And it's ultra processed. It's got tons of these vegetable seed oils, which are very toxic. And unfortunately, we've been fed this lie that if we have this high carb, low fat diet, it's going to be great. And unfortunately, it's led to more heart disease, led to more cancer, more obesity, more diabetes.
Right.
We should be doing the opposite. We should be eating a lot less sugar. We should not have with sugar is a poison, particularly if you eat fructose. Fructose really does a ton of damage in your brain and all parts of your body. The thing is with glucose, it could be metabolized in many organs in your body. Fructose can be only metabolized in your liver. So
Right.
if you're eating a lot of fructose, your liver is going to be overwhelmed, and that
Right.
is what we've been seeing. Because you notice you've been in practice almost 40 years. 40 years ago, a type 2 diabetes was called adult onset diabetes. Now
Right.
kids are getting it. It's teenagers. They're getting it at 8, 9 years old. That did not exist. And why is
Yeah,
that?
and there's obviously it's the massive influx of the high sugar foods, the fact that none of these kids exercise anymore, they're all playing video games. Parents use the video games as babysitters, and on top of that, there is way too many, and I'm not sure if we want to go in this area about taking, vaccines and inoculations, Vic, but there's just way too many vaccines that are going into these kids. And I think parents need to start questioning, the physicians and say, okay, which one of these are necessary? I don't believe that you should be giving, children under 2 years old certain vaccines that are going to prevent, sexually transmitted diseases potentially 25 years from then. Um, I think that the body has some trouble in handling it, and it can lead to other problems. It can lead to other cellular problems. It can create, maybe some dysfunction even in the genetic code that we have. I just have questions about that. And from your side, your thinking, what do you think about that? What do you think about, the kids are getting poisoned way too early with the foods, the medications, and how does that play out, as they get older?
No, and it has a big effect on their health. I agree. They're getting bombarded with way too many vaccines when they're young. And if you're going to give some vaccines, I think they need to be spread out. You should be given vaccines every 2 or 3 weeks. And the more, you're right, certain vaccines, like to prevent sexually transmitted disease, they should not be getting it when they're 2 years old. That should be something they should consider, many years down the road. So I think one problem is too often people think of their primary care physician, their medical doctor as a god, and you can't do that. You have the right to question them. They do make mistakes. We all do. None of us have a perfect in our knowledge.
Yes,
So,
absolutely.
and I think that's a mistake a lot of people make because you will do research, you'll find they do make mistakes. I mean, they here's some of the things they tell you. A lot of times you have acid. What do they tell you? They'll give you an acid blocker, something that'll reduce your stomach, which is the worst thing you should do
It's
because your body needs stomach acid.
right.
It needs it to digest nutrients. It helps kill harmful bacteria. So
And
Go
Yeah,
ahead.
and most of the time, it's not an overproduction of acid. It could be something else. It could be, a bacterial situation. It could be some other situation where you're not, your acid alkaline balance in your body's off. And then if you're eating foods and then you take something to alkalize your stomach acid, you're not going to properly digest that food. It's going to
Hmm.
pass into your intestines, and basically, it's going to rot instead of digest.
And
You
that's
know.
very true. Yeah, and a lot of times when here's the thing, usually in your mid to late 30s, your stomach starts producing less out. Here's the thing, when you get older, your body doesn't produce more things. It eventually produces
I
less.
know, Vic. I'm there. I'm
You're
getting there,
there.
brother.
It produces less collagen, less stomach acid, and other things. So if you're having these acid reflux, heartburn issues, and you're 45, 50, trust me, it's almost never too much acid. And then and again, you do not want to lower the amount of acid in your stomach. And unfortunately, a lot of people do, and it opens yourself to a whole bunch of diseases,
Right.
leaky
I think
gut,
I think it becomes
SIBO, and
almost.
other things.
I think it becomes counterproductive. And you know what? There is a lot of myths out there. There's a lot. There's a lot of things. It's that people think are reality, but they're just one or two clicks away on the internet to find out what's true or what's not true. And even though sometimes I must say the internet is filled with a lot of hoaxes themselves, but if you research some stuff, you can learn. I mean, like, what do you think? What are some common myths that you hear people talking about when it comes to health?
Well, I mentioned, they mentioned the high carb diet. They think it's healthy. It's not healthy. A lot of people think eggs are dangerous for you, and that's totally bogus. Eggs are some of the most nutritious, healthiest foods you can eat. But
Right.
we've been fed this lie over the last 56 years. They have high cholesterol, and people, it started with Ansel Keys, and he's telling us, lower, more sugar, less saturated fat, less cholesterol. The problem is not the cholesterol. The problem is the triglycerides. So, and
Right.
cholesterol, you need that. You need cholesterol to for your body, you need it for your vitamin D, you need it
Your
for your
entire
brain.
neurological system is lined with cholesterol, man.
Exactly. Estrogen, progesterone, they're all made from cholesterol. In fact, without cholesterol, there would be no human race.
Well, what's interesting is what I find bizarre is that people are taking these statin drugs to lower cholesterol, when in reality it's not a problem with the general number of what the cholesterol is. It's the ratio between the good cholesterol and the bad cholesterol.
Right,
You know,
exactly.
and I don't think they're informed on that. We're the only country in the world. We take more statin drugs than the entire world combined. We take more pain medicine than the entire world combined. What's going on, Vic?
Yeah, it's all about money. There's a lot of money in statin drugs. They're making a ton of money off of that, making a ton of money of these pain relievers, painkillers. And the other problem with statin drugs, number one, it lowers your CoQ10, it lowers your magnesium levels, and like I said, it lowers the cholesterol in your brain, which is one of the main reasons why dementia and Alzheimer's have skyrocketed in the last 56 years. It's actually a physician-caused disease. Alzheimer's was rare 100 years ago. And one of the big causes of
Well,
it.
they'll tell you a story that it was not diagnosed correctly. But there is a nutritional factor to it. I'm telling you, I've just finished. I mean, as you know, I teach a class at church every Sunday morning. It's called God for Health, God's Original Design for Health.
Mhm.
We just finished the Alzheimer's class on Sunday, so it's all fresh in my head. And there are a number of things that you could stay away from that will minimize your chance of developing these what they call the beta amyloid protein plaque formations on the neurons. And there's a number of supplements that you could take. And I'm going to ask you about supplements, but I just want to just inform the audience about this because it's very interesting. Green tea years ago became very popular. It's good for this, it's good for that. Well, it's also good for helping to bind with these beta amyloid plaque formation or beta amyloid proteins in the brain before it forms a plaque. And resveratrol, which is also a very powerful antioxidant, which is found in the pigment of grapes and, may I say, red wine. A little bit of that is not going to kill you. Pinot Noir happens to have the highest level of that, but nonetheless. So, what are your thoughts just about people taking supplements? Because I get patients come in, they say, "Oh, I don't need any supplements. I heard this. It's bogus. It's a story." What's your take from that side there?
Number one, there's nothing wrong with wine. First miracle in Cana was done with wine, so nothing wrong with
Absolutely.
that. No, I agree. Let's
And I have
virtual
a theory for that. If we have some time, I'll give you Dr. V's theory, the scientific background of how Jesus changed that dirty water into wine. But go ahead, tell me
Yeah,
more
no,
about
I'm a
the
big
supplements.
supporter of supplements, and number one, starting with vitamin and mineral supplements, because here's the thing, like we talked about, everything starts with eating good quality food. Unfortunately, our soils are so depleted, you are not able to get all the nutrients you need simply from having a good diet. It helps, but we've known this since 1936. A Senate document came out saying that the soil was nutrient deficient, and it's just only gotten worse. So you'd have to probably eat like 7, 8 apples to get the nutrition you got from an apple in 1945.
I
So
would probably believe that.
yeah,
Yeah.
so you definitely need to definitely supplement. But at the same time, you also cannot out supplement a bad diet. So even though you're taking all these supplements which help, like multivitamins and stuff like that, that doesn't give you the license to have a really unhealthy diet, because if you supplement but you have an unhealthy diet, you're gonna have health issues. So you got
Absolutely,
to do both.
absolutely.
So, but yeah, I'm a big so I like resveratrol, CoQ10, like
Yeah, I'm
astaxanthin.
a big CoQ10 person myself. So let me ask you a question. So, I when the simplest thing I always hear with people, like, I'm going to get myself in shape, I'm going to start dieting, I'm going to start exercising, I'm going to start taking supplements. So, I'm a big fan of exercising. I go to the gym 3 days a week. I lift weights, I run on the treadmill. I am not going to allow the enemy to kill me before my time. I want to do everything I can to live to my genetic potential. So let's say you want to exercise. Like, what do you think is something like for somebody? Because we're talking about your book, okay, that you're bringing out. How you can be happy, healthy, and whole, which is important. Even in the Bible, when Jesus would like lay hands on people, he made them whole. So they might have been blind, he made them whole. So if they had ulcers or liver conditions or whatever, they were whole. So they got their vision back and they got everything else coming back. So give me your concept on exercise and this whole concept of becoming whole.
Yeah. No, exercising is very important. It's good for your brain health. It's good, lowering your blood pressure. It's good, a lot of good cardiovascular benefits. You definitely should be exercising, and you're gonna have more energy. The only couple things just to keep in mind, though, I know you agree with this. Number one, don't exercise late in the evening before you go to bed, because you won't be able to fall asleep. So
Yeah, you're producing
give yourself a few hours.
you get
Also, when
too
you
much of an adrenaline rush before you go to bed. Not a good idea.
No, and definitely you should definitely be exercising, and at the minimum at least several times a week. It definitely has a lot of great health benefit and really good for your brain health. Really keeps it sharp and active.
Absolutely. I mean,
And,
it's very important, and I even tell my patients. I said you got to start somewhere. And one of the things, just to recommend to our audience that's going to be listening, is don't overdo it day one. Don't think that if you haven't exercised in who knows how long, that you're going to make it all back the first day when you go to the gym. That's being a knucklehead. Don't do that. Okay. Um, so tell us a little about this about your book that's coming out. I'd like to hear a little bit about it
sure,
before we sign off.
sure. I just want to add a couple of things about
Sure.
exercising as well. And the other things that came out is when you're having number one, don't try to do it all at once. Like if you haven't exercised in 30, 40 years or whatever, don't try to do 2 or 3 hours. It's not going to overcome, because there's a compound effect. In fact, you should probably start slow, maybe just a few minutes, just to build up on that consistency. Because if you try to
Right.
do all at once, you're
That's the
like,
key part.
it's
It
being
starts
consistent.
here before it starts, in the guns.
Exactly. You should just, if you're gonna go to a gym, just show up and do a workout for a few minutes and then keep coming back. 5 minutes become 10 minutes, become 20 minutes and 30 minutes. Don't try to do 1 or 2 hours, because you can wind up becoming
Yeah,
overwhelmed and
no.
give up. So it's a little bit at a time, a compound. Here's the thing, if I want to have muscles like Arnold Schwarzenegger, I'm not gonna get it all, and I've not lifted weights in 20 years. I'm not gonna get it all in one workout. I gotta do a little bit at a time, and then do a little bit more each time. And over the course of a month, yeah, my muscles will get bigger. So
Right.
that's something to keep in mind. Also, one more thing about exercise. When you're working out, getting rid of that sweat and those toxins. You're not just getting rid of the sweat, you're also getting rid of nutrients. So after you work out, make sure you supplement, because you want to make sure you get those
Right.
nutrients back that you lose. So a lot of people may not be
Especially,
aware of that.
yeah, especially amino acids. What I do is I typically I go in the morning to work out. Typically I'm on an empty stomach. And I hydrate myself. And my plan of action is to, burn off whatever glucose that's in the blood, have my body go into it's not really going into ketosis, but it's going into burning up the stores of the glycogen that's in your muscles and your liver. Okay. And then you're also doing muscle damage, and you need to be, and you got to come back. And that first meal, I always suggest to people, Vic, is make it a protein meal. Have your egg, have maybe if you're going to have your protein shake, because what you want to do is you don't want to put sugar in because you don't want to, spike your, your blood sugar level. And if you put the protein in, your body's going to metabolize. It's going to go through some stages. You're still going to burn off glycogen, and you're going to replenish the muscles, and you're going to, that's it. That's how you work it out.
I totally
And
agree with you on that.
not
And
bad. It's not a bad way to do it.
no, I agree. And I think a great time to work out is in the morning before you have your breakfast because, you're in a fasting state. You haven't eaten, 8, 9, 10, 12 hours. So it's a perfect time you get more benefits when you're in a fasting state.
Absolutely.
And I agree with you about
Absolutely.
the protein. In addition to what you said, well, one of the things we lose the most when we're sleeping is actually protein. So it's another reason why
Mhm.
to start with a protein breakfast. So eggs are great instead of carbs, like a lot of people
And it's
start with
also
cereal.
great, great because it's going to help relieve stress because your cortisol levels are the highest when you wake up in the morning too. You
No,
know,
absolutely. And when you eat protein like eggs, you're gonna feel a lot more full, a lot more satiated than if you have like cereal. Eating
you
carbs
know what,
actually
Vic?
says
You're going to make me want to go make an omelet right after we speak over here.
exactly. Yeah, so
I,
actually, so for my book, yeah, so the reason why I wrote it was because I think a lot of people just don't have this information. A lot of people want to be healthy, but they're giving the wrong advice. They've been told a lot of myths about health, which just are not true. So so I talked about these things and what kind of foods,
So you know what I like about it? I like the concept is that, people may think out there, like I can only if I'm going to buy a book about getting healthy and getting well, it has to be from somebody who has like all these degrees and such like that in the subject matter. Not necessarily true. Sometimes, you being a living example of the research and that you did it, okay, and you're doing it to yourself on a regular basis, you're working on your wellness is not only information, but it's inspiration. And I think that's critical. I remember a bunch of years ago when I wrote my first book, my Genesis diet book. The first two to three chapters has nothing to do with anything except positioning yourself to be successful. And you've written some books on success and articles on success, and that's critical. It starts here, up in the squash. If you can't get it straight here, you're not going to be successful.
No, I totally agree. And then, by the way, your Genesis the diet book is a great book. So if you want to learn more about it, I highly recommend it as well. And you're right, it all starts with your mind, your mindset. Because if your mindset is not right, because a lot of times a lot of people know what to do. Eat better quality foods, exercise more, but they don't do it. Why? Because there's something wrong up here. And as a
Right.
result, they find a way to self-sabotage and they
Oh
don't
man,
take the actions necessary
self-sabotage
to
is the
to to
word.
live a healthier life.
Yeah,
Yes.
before we sign off, let me give you the classic self-sabotage. You had a rough day, you go home, your neurotransmitters, your levels of dopamine, serotonin in your brain are all not where they should be, and you have an option to somehow fight it back, or you know what, have a huge piece of cake, which will make you feel good for the moment. It'll release, the endorphins in your brain. You'll feel good as you're eating it, and it's destroying your body at the same time. Anyway, Vic, it was a pleasure speaking with you. I think this is good stuff. I think that people should be aware that that you're out there, and you're a coach. You can coach people. I mean, you can't necessarily, you got to be careful as far as giving them diagnosis and stuff like that. But I would have to say, being being someone who can coach somebody to be, getting themselves fit and be well is critically important. It's more important. I mean, I'm not going to say it's more important than going to your doctor to find out what's wrong with you, but if you're going to get well, you have to have somebody who's going to encourage you and give you direction and give you a path, a lane to stay in order to achieve these things. I kudos to you, man. I think it's great stuff.
Thank you. And then to my last point to everyone before we sign off, Dr. Vetere, is number one, I've implemented what I've told people to do. I've changed my diet, much lower carbs, much more protein. I eat a lot of eggs, exercise, I do some weightlifting, and in the past year, I've lost over 20 pounds. I
Right.
don't eat less food. I just change the type of food that I eat.
Right.
So it's not lower calories. That's a myth. and that which they try to sell you. It's if you try to just eat less, you're gonna after a while you're gonna go because we get hungry. So
Yeah, yeah.
it's
You're
just
gonna throw
change
your
the time.
metabolism off. Your body's gonna store fat. It doesn't work.
Yeah, you got to
Doesn't
change
work.
what you eat, and then the last thing I'll just say is, again, get lower the stress. Get enough sleep. Be have the attitude of gratitude. Pray more because your mental health, your spiritual health, all of these things work together with your
Yep,
metabolic health. They all
I
work. So
agree.
make sure everything is working together, and believe if you do these things, you can have a much healthier life. I
I
see it
believe
myself.
so.
I see it in the people I work with. I know you've seen it in the people you work with, Dr. Vetere. So listen, I want to thank you so much for having me on the show. It's been a real pleasure seeing you today, my friend.
Pleasure's
And
mine, Vic.
God
All right.
bless.
And I'll tell you that story about the wine another time. Okay. This
Sounds
is
good.
Dr. V. I'm signing off. Man, have a fabulous day. Bye.
Bye bye.